Committee to order. Excuse me. Well, good afternoon. We have a number of action items on the agenda today, including a few naming requests, as well as 2 requested projects to add to the major capital plan. After we address the action items, Colette will share her report, including a review of the proposed revisions to the major capital plan. Then she'll bring those back to us for approval in June. She'll also share a report on major capital projects underway out at the Fontaine Research Park. Well, speaking of the park, the first action item for your consideration is a request to name 2 new roads at the park. Since we have multiple namings, I'll ask Colette to present all of these naming requests in succession, and then we'll provide opportunities for questions as I bring up each naming opportunity. Colette, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. The first naming is out of the research park. So because of all the construction and the new buildings that we're adding in the research park, there was a need to kind of reconfigure the roadways because right now there's only 2 roads out there, the Racy Hunt Drive and then Natural Resources Drive. So because of the concentration of science and research in this particular park, we thought it would be a great opportunity to honor some of our more eminent faculty members who's studied in the past and study currently scientific disciplines. So what we're proposing is that one of the roads be named after Dr. Richard Guerrant, and the second one for Mavis Hetherington. So Dr. Guerrant is currently a faculty member. He's the founding director of UVA's Center for Global Health Equity and serves as the Thomas H. Hunter Professor of International Medicine in the School of Medicine, Division of Infectious Diseases and International Health. He's an internationally recognized expert on enteric infections, and his research on pediatric diarrhea has helped save more than 10 million lives globally, chiefly among young children. Dr. Guerrant, among his many accolades and awards, is a recipient of the Thomas Jefferson Award from the university. Mavis Hetherington was a renowned child psychologist and pioneer in the field of developmental psychology, best known for her studies on the impact of divorce on children. She was a faculty member in the UVA Department of Psychology for 29 years, served as the department chair from 1980 to 1984, and it was her rigorous standards that elevated the status of the department to one of national distinction. She also has many awards and accolades and was also a recipient of the Thomas Jefferson Award. Ms. Hetherington passed away in 2023 at the age of 96. I'll keep going. The next naming is the Olympics is, let me get to it here. The Carl Smith Way. It's actually renaming for 2 roads that currently exist on the university's grounds. Whitehead Road, as you might know, is located on the northeast side of Scott Stadium. It was named in honor of Dr. Richard Whitehead, who served as the dean of the medical faculty from 1905 to 1916. Dr. Whitehead actually built a home on land leased from the university near the road's location, which is how the road became named Whitehead Road. What we're proposing is to rename that road Carl Smith Way to recognize the philanthropy from the Carl and Hunter Smith family. Many of you likely know that Carl Smith was a 1951 graduate of the College of Arts and Sciences and a very generous supporter, along with his widow Hunter Smith, of many areas across the institution. Mr. Smith served as a member of the Board of Visitors from 1980 to 1988 and was a two-term trustee of the Darden School Foundation. He passed away in 2005 at the age of 78. Mr. Smith made a very generous gift to athletics back in 1997, and which supported the renovation of Scott Stadium at that point in time. It was the single largest gift the university had received at that point in time. And to recognize that contribution, the area encompassing the stadium is known as Carl Smith Center. But at the same time, the university did make a commitment to Mr. Smith and his family that we would honor him further by naming a road in his honor. And it's taken us a little while to get to that point. But it's very difficult to rename a road in the city because you have to get the approval of everybody who lives along the road. So instead of that, we've chosen to rename Whitehead Road, which is a university road and much easier for this board to enact. So not wanting to lose the Whitehead Road, there is a road that goes off perpendicular to Whitehead, which is a generically named Chemistry Drive because it's adjacent to the chemistry building. And so what we also propose, along with naming Whitehead Road, is to rename Chemistry Drive as Whitehead Road. So during his tenure as Dean of the Medical School faculty, Dr. Whitehead led the transformation of the curriculum to support the transition to a 4-year medical program, which had actually become the new standard in the country, and he implemented various important changes that recognized and modernized the school. So 2 actions here. One is to rename Whitehead Road Carl Smith Way, and the second to rename Chemistry Drive Whitehead Road. The third naming is for the Olympic Sports Center, which will be open later this year. And the name is proposed to recognize the very, very generous philanthropy over the years of David and Mary Harrison, their family, and the Harrison Foundation. David Harrison earned a bachelor's degree from UVA in 1939 and a law degree in 1941. Over the course of their lifetimes, David and his wife, Mary Anderson Harrison, have supported the university across many, many areas, and their family members continue to do so. There is a significant commitment from his estate for this building in particular, and thus the proposal to name the building after the Harrison family. And then the final naming is for a tennis court. This is part of the outdoor tennis complex out at Boar's Head. The proposed naming recognizes a gift from David Dickinson II and Frances Dickinson and honors the memory of another UVA alum, Jeffrey Cudlip. David Dickinson is a '64 graduate of the college. At UVA, he was a men's tennis 3-time letter winner, and he is a member of the Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame. His wife, Frances Dickinson, achieved a national junior ranking of 7 in tennis and won the International Junior Orange Bowl tennis tournament in singles and in doubles. Francis's son and David's stepson, Jeffrey Cudlip, was a 1990 UVA graduate who passed away in 1991. And while at UVA, he was a Phi Society member, a Madison House volunteer, and he worked at the Cavalier Daily. So we are asking for the board's approval to name a court at the tennis complex, the Jeffrey Cudlip Memorial Court, in recognition of a recent gift from David and Frances Dickinson to support the UVA men's and women's tennis program. So, Mr. Chairman, those are the 4 namings.
Well, thank you, Colette. First, we'll take each one on a vote. Do I have a motion to approve the namings of the Guerrant Drive and Hetherington Drive? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next, is there a motion to approve the namings of Carl Smith Way and Whitehead Road? Do I have a motion? Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, a motion to approve the naming of the Harrison Family Olympic Sports Center.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And lastly, is there a motion to approve the naming of Jeffrey Cudlip Memorial Court?
Move.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. No discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now we'll turn to a second set of action items.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about the capital plan, a revision to the major capital plan that we are not asking for any action on today, but will bring back to you in June. However, before we get to June, there are two projects that the health system would like to move forward sooner than approval in June. So we've got two separate projects, both of which are fit-outs of space, not new buildings, but fit-outs of space in buildings at the North Fork Research Park, which, as you know, is owned and operated by the UVA Foundation. The first project is an expansion of the mail order and specialty pharmacy facility. So we have a pharmacy that manages a broad range of services and facilities throughout the health system, and pharmacy services are changing rapidly. One area of growth is in specialty and mail order pharmacy services, which serve a wide group of patients, providing convenient home delivery and increased access to specialty medications. The pharmacy currently is in some lease space now at North Fork, about 10,000 square feet, but needs expansion room. And there is another building out at North Fork that has space available. So the health system proposes to fit that space out to accommodate the expansion of the pharmacy that will kind of help them in their efficiency and improve quality control for pharmaceutical deliveries. So this is a $6 million project that they would like to start immediately planning and then go into construction. And so that's why we're bringing it to you a little bit earlier than the normal cycle.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve adding the mail order and specialty pharmacy expansion project to the major capital plan? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before the vote, I will make my stand once again to all my colleagues that I will be a no vote on any additional capital expenditures until I see a budget for 25, 26 of at least 100 million less than what we've been spending. So I shall vote no.
So be it. All right. I believe the ayes have it.
Okay.
Colette?
All right. This is the second project. Now, this is just asking for approval for planning and design, not the entire construction or fit out of the space yet. We'll bring that in June with the bigger plan. But this is a satellite clinical lab facility that would be out again at North Fork in the Town Center 4 building. If you're familiar with the buildings out there, that's the newest of the 4 buildings that form the town center. Since the building was constructed, the second floor has been shelled and hasn't been occupied by anyone, despite our efforts to lease it either commercially or within the university. So this is kind of a need and an opportunity that we join together. The health system has a clinical lab on 11th Street, and it's just clearly outgrown the capacity. And we looked to see if we could find a space close into the hospital to build another building, another clinical lab building, which we couldn't really find one. And so What the health system team did is to look at services that don't have to be right next to the hospital, and they could be located more remotely, and so that is what will be located out at North Fork. This floor is 28,000 square feet, and will allow, obviously, the growth and the capacity that they need to process all the lab specimens. So this is just $2 million to begin the planning and design and programming of the space, and then we'll bring the project back for approval in June.
Mr. Chair, is $2 million for planning and design a norm? That seems like a lot of money for just a plan and design. Is there an RFP out for this?
Well, we would, yeah.
$2 million just to
Well, it'll
design
take it all the way to construction drawings. And this is not our staff, this is the foundation staff that would be building out this space. This is not a UVA. It's not a facilities project.
What's the anticipated ROI on this?
I don't have that answer, but I
Is
can,
there one?
I don't know. I can certainly ask the health system and
Well, it
Get
seems
back to you.
reasonable. We want to look at what our investment's going to return for that 2 million plus the actual physical cost to rebuild it.
Yeah, we'll be happy to bring back, this is for the planning and design, for the full project schedule build out. We would obviously do, a financial plan
Financial
for
plan.
you.
Finance committee.
Yeah, and that'll go through the finance committee. But trust me, the team is looking at where there is growth margin. So clearly this has been, Jason talked about it earlier today, they are identifying locations where they can expand, where there's profitability. So I would think it will meet good pro forma numbers. But
Well, in order to answer the question, do we need to deal with it today, or can at the next meeting we get the information between now and the next meeting?
Well, I think what we'd like to do is to go ahead and go forward with planning and design, and we'll bring back a full pro forma. But I'm very confident in tight margin times, the businesses that they're looking to expand are necessary both for the continued operations, but also with margin in mind. So I would say trust us, please. And
That adequate?
As a small businessman, I would want to look at all the details before I committed that money, but
Oh, yeah.
I'm not even a member of your committee, Mr. Chairman. I'm just
That's
making an
fine.
observation.
Well, do we own the
We need
shell?
all the thought.
I'm sorry?
The shell exists. We own the
Shell
shell.
exists, yeah. It's
Yeah.
a UVA foundation-owned
We own that.
property.
Okay.
So
it's
this is
been-
just fitting out that
How long has it
28,000
been
square.
sitting empty?
Well, years,
Years.
yeah. I can't remember
The
when we
second
built that.
question I would ask, I guess I'm a townie, but it seems one reason North Fork's been slow to develop is that people don't want to be out that far. But of course, the town's growing, it's growing to the north.
Yep, it is.
Are the people who would be employed in this space, will they be content that they're gonna be up on 29? Is that a problem in terms of engaging the right people and recruiting the right people that we're gonna want?
As far as I know, otherwise I don't think the health system would have proposed that it be located here.
it's a high growth area, and obviously
there's-
in terms of cost of living, it's a great place to live, and it's been an attractor for us for recruiting and retaining talent. Again, it's also part of that big master plan up at North Fork where we're looking at live, work, learn. So we're also doing housing up in this area. So.
And this is where the biosciences are growing too. There's a Seville BioHub is locating in this building as well, so.
We're creating a critical mass there
Exactly,
finally
yeah.
after all these years.
Yep.
I think for future projects as well, the more activity there is out there, it just kind of helps make it a more
Sure.
attractive space for people to think about, sort of moving into.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very quick, I think in the spirit of all the questions that were asked, and you guys have probably gone over this a bunch, but so I know some projects there's sort of a rule, it's got to pay for itself on an operating basis. And I think of things like healthcare services, dormitories, food service. But then there's other things that aren't really, I think the question was asked about one of the parking garages are we going to get money, are we? And then other things we do aren't really like that, I guess, like, if you're going to build a rec center for the students to exercise. So at some point, and again, I think you guys go over this stuff and it just gets forgotten of the process. And like, so when you're evaluating a capital project, you have the capital expense. And then you have the ongoing operation. And I think we have a system for how we evaluate that stuff. And it can't, and I wonder whether there's like different rule for like, okay, we're gonna open a clinical laboratory or a pharmacy on the one hand versus we're gonna, I don't know, do a snack bar, over by Cabell Hall or something. So just, that process would be good to sort of remind us about. It doesn't, you have to do it right now, but I mean, just, that's something that, we obviously want to keep an eye on as you put these new facilities up, is what's going to be the ongoing financial burden. Well, I guess it's a finance committee thing anyway. Thanks.
Any other questions? So, excuse me. Call a vote. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Now, our last action item is a request.
This is,
Yeah.
no more action items, we're done.
We have a kind of a statement coming up. During the day, if you go back to the last meeting, we had the introduction of a major performance center down at the intersection of 29 and 250. There's been a lot of discussion between that meeting and today. I've received phone calls, some very, very concerned about scale and need and cost. Now, Colette, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in the interim, the legislature in Richmond has approved funding for this, some of it, correct?
Yes, correct.
I spent most of this morning over at the architect's office trying to get my own head around scale. There's no question there's need. Key question, or a key opportunity that finally rang my bell was once some of these spaces in Cabell are freed up, it allows expansion of existing departments. I'm going to get more information about that. I'm going to ask that we really deal with this at the next meeting, and that at the next meeting we have the full architect's rendering, the model that we saw here, because we need to look at this in the Performing Arts Center as a piece of that total expansion up along at 250 and on up to the west. It makes more sense in looking at it and determining it. There's, art, there's the music department, there is a cultural need and an academic need, and I will come off of this simply by saying that its scale has got to fit the footprint. And that's what we worked on today for well over an hour, trying to figure out scale. A number of you all commented, as I did, it's really a big building. Well, when you look at it in the model in the context of the total location, it begins to put it in a different category. Did the state provide the funding 100%? The answer is no, because I don't think we really know what that cost is. So between now and the next meeting, Colette, but the one thing I left that meeting this morning, we really need to understand total cost projection. Another question that came up is moving the art museum separate from the Performing Arts Center. That's still an issue that's on the table, trying to get more data on cost. So I believe, Colette, that we have all business completed here.
No, we're going to
Got
talk
one
about,
more?
yeah, we're going to talk about the capital plan, which
All
is
right,
not
go
an
ahead.
action item. Okay, not an action item today. This
Right.
is what we'll bring back in June, but this is the opportunity for, conversation, questions, discussion. Just to set the context, when we develop, we revise the capital program every year. And we start in the fall, early fall in September, and we run through a process that solicits projects to add to the program, to take off the program, to change the dollar values. And that runs through the executive leadership, up through the board. And that orange block that's in the middle, the second column, that's where we are today. And then in June, we'll bring it back for your action. So this is where we are in terms of value of the capital program. It's $2.1 billion right now. In summary, we'll finish 2 projects before the end of June. For the value is about $156 million. The majority of that is at Shumway Hall, which will be finished by the end of this academic year. And then the expansion of the focused ultrasound is the other one. The revisions include 9 new projects for somewhere around $270 million. And I'll talk about those in a moment. There also, the College at Wise has proposed removing 2 projects from their list because they have a fairly good sized list of projects. And they rely heavily on the state to fund their capital. So they're going to take 2 projects off the list at this moment, which doesn't mean that they can't come back at a later date. But that puts us, when you see in June, that puts us somewhere around the same amount of value for the entire program, about $2.2 billion. In terms of how those value of projects divides between what's under construction, what's in planning, and then what hasn't been initiated yet. That's what this pie chart is. So we have over half that value under construction right now. 9 projects that total about $400 million will be finished in calendar year 2025. Things like the Olympic Sports Center, the Center for Politics, the parking garage at Fontaine Research Park, some infrastructure projects, as well as the Virginia Guest House. There are another 9 projects in that blue section of the pie that will finish either in 2026 or 2027. Those include things like the energy plan at Fontaine, a large renovation of MEM Gym, the Karsh Institute of Democracy, the parking garage at North Grounds, the Darden School's student housing, and the Paul and Diane Manning Institute of Biotechnology. And the value of all that is $800 million. We've also have 3 projects that will start like imminently in this month or next. Our student housing project on the Emmett Ivy corridor, an infrastructure project in the chemistry building, and the fit out of the south tower of the hospital. So, and then there are still obviously projects that have not been initiated yet, either because we haven't identified the funding for them or they're just not ready to go. Can you help me there? Hey, can you advance the slide for me? Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the new projects that we're proposing. The first is a fuel conversion at the main heat plant. Currently at the heat plant, we burn natural gas, mostly natural gas, but also coal as a backup fuel. We'd like to be able to get off of coal. And that's what this project would allow us to do. The importance of this project is for operational continuity in the medical center. The heat plant produces steam, which is used by the medical center for all different kinds of things in patient care. And there are times in the past where the city has curtailed us on natural gas. So we have to have a backup fuel, and right now that backup fuel is coal, which is becoming increasingly difficult to procure, costly to operate on coal, et cetera. And so we believe that by converting off of coal, we obviously will eliminate those 4 lovely coal silos that are down on Main Street, as well as all the associated ash and handling facilities. We will use oil as the backup, but likely only have to burn oil about 5% of the time, and we would be about 95% on natural gas then. And that will save about $1.5 to $2 million a year in operating costs. The second project is a renovation at the park. If you don't know where the park is, that is our UVA recreation facility that's up on North Grounds by the JAG School. It's a series of fields. The northernmost part of that site used to be the women's intercollegiate softball field. And now that we have Palmer Park, we really need to get rid of that infrastructure that's there. The dugouts are still there and other things. We also need to improve the security up there. It's a place that not only students go, but the community does. There's a walking track around those fields. So we would be improving all of that and enhancing the safety and security with fencing and cameras and that kind of thing. The renovation of the Millmont Street facility, which is occupied by Parking and Transportation, that used to also house mail services. We've relocated that for efficiencies to a different location, and so this interior renovation would really just be able to use the space there more efficiently for the expanded operation of Parking and Transportation, which includes, over time, a conversion to battery electric buses. The Research Data Center is a project that would right now be located out at the Fontaine Research Park. The concept is building capacity for a 16 megawatt data center, but initially equipping it at 4 megawatts, obviously with the growth potential. JJ's going to talk about this, and Kelly Cudoni, our CIO, will be here tomorrow in finance, so she'll give you more background about this project and why it's critical for us to do this at this point in time. The Darden School, their faculty office building, hasn't really been renovated in the 25 years since the school was built, so they are proposing that this is a privately funded project. They have about half the money in hand. They still have to do some fundraising. But this would teaching has changed over 2 decades, so they want to better equip the facilities for the way that teaching is done today.
Well, clarify, that would then be paid by Darden?
Yes, by gifts.
Okay.
Yep. Then there's the School of Data Science and Entrepreneurship building. This would be located adjacent or next to data science on the Emmett Ivy corridor in the next site that is identified in the master plan. I think you'll remember that we announced a major gift related to this facility to the board at a prior meeting. This would allow for students who would have classrooms, maker spaces, research space, and it's a kind of a joint collaborative effort between the School of Data Science, the Vice President for Research, and the Provost's office. Oops, I don't want to go forward. That's right. Lanigan Track is our track and field facility in the athletics district. It has not had anything substantial done to it since we put the new track there in 2012. You might know that there are no bathroom facilities there. Porta potties are used for both the teams and for events. So this project would allow bathroom facilities, better grandstands, space for team rooms, as well as a small concession area. Again, private gifts, we would have to raise the money before this project could be initiated. And then the last two are the projects we just talked about for the health system.
I would also say at the track, this project will remove all the porta-johns
Right.
that are sitting out there, right along the main
Yes.
road.
John's had a tour of the facilities out there.
Went out there.
These are the two WISE projects that the chancellor and her team are recommending just come off the plan. There was an athletic building that's been on the plan since 2013. And the music education building has been on the plan since 2009. And then just so you are aware, usually, so before we can really kind of formulate a capital plan, it's often a good idea if we do a kind of a feasibility study, basically. So there are three that we'd like to initiate in the next year. One would look at some arts and sciences programs, math, which is in Kirchhoff Hall, statistics, which is in Halsey Hall, and economics, which is in Monroe Hall. So it would look at how we might reconfigure those buildings or the spaces. I mean, I think it's a pretty wide open type of study to look for efficiencies and how we could better accommodate the needs of those three departments, as well as provide additional space for undergraduate advising, which has been expanded as you know, because we've talked about that quite a bit in this room, expanded over the last few years. Warner Hall is home to Navy ROTC, I think that's right. Yes. And Army ROTC and Air Force are in the astronomy building. So we'd really like to look at Warner Hall to see if we can't locate all three ROTC programs in the same building, and which would also require some renovation.
Will the services pay for that?
No. We'll have to raise the money somehow.
Pardon?
We'll have to raise the money somehow or identify funding.
That's 150,000?
That's for the study, right? Yeah, that has been, that money has been identified, but once we get to what it might cost to actually do the work, we'd have to look at a financial plan for that.
What's all that back there near the astronomy building? There's
That's all facilities management.
Where I would-
And then the last one is a multi-use facility at the college at Wise. I think the college is really the center of economic activity in Wise. And there's a need to look at the need for a facility that would accommodate not only the needs of the college, but also some community and economic development needs there. So that would be the third study.
Why don't you go right ahead?
That is it.
Fontaine?
Fontaine, I can do that, yes. So many of you, when you come to town, maybe you don't go out to the Fontaine Research Park. You've heard us talk a lot about all the work we're doing out there, so I thought I'd just show you some drone shots of what things are looking like today. That's an overview of the whole site. This is as you come in the park from the top of the slide in, and you can see toward the bottom where that green, whatever that is, that's the new roundabout that will serve as the central spine coming in. Here's the new garage, great progress there. That'll be finished in the fall.
But as I've been looking at this picture, it seems like that's just screaming for a big solar installation there. Has that been considered?
Yeah, it could be. It can be equipped for solar, but that's not in this project budget.
Does it have the load-bearing capability?
Yes. This is the site for the Manning Institute. It's a big hole right now, but we're coming along with progress. And then this is the energy plant. So you don't often get this kind of view, so I thought I'd share. But that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Colette, and a lot of exciting things going on. Grateful to you and the team. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's no other items to be discussed, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back for academic and student life. Thank you.